In this video, I bring to you 11 amazing books set in Kerala, 11 amazing books that are recommended by book critics, book lovers, and book reviewers. Hey guys, I'm Sankalpita and you're watching BookGeeks India, which is a channel where I make book related videos. Like I told you, in this video I bring to you 11 amazing books set in Kerala. Now this was a video which I had planned on the occasion of Onam, but it just somehow happened that I couldn't shoot it, and so I'm doing this video now. But even then, this video is dedicated to the wonderful land of Kerala, to its diversity, to its beautiful people, beautiful landscapes, and also its vibrant culture. Now before we begin this video, let me tell you that I have not read any of these books before, and I do plan to read them, but I have not read any of them. This basically is a result of an Instagram story that I had put out asking for recommendations from book reviewers about books based in Kerala. I had asked them to suggest me some really amazing books, and they had come up with this list. Now out of all the books that were suggested to me, I did a little bit research, and this is a final compilation that I present before you. So I have 11 books to talk to you about, and now without any further ado, let's get into the video. Book number 1 is The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. This book won the Booker Prize for 1997, and this book tells us the story of two children, Esthapin and Rahel, who learn about the horrifying truth of life as they are tortured and blamed for every misfortune that befalls on them and befalls on their family. This book throws light on life in Kerala. It also talks to us about some issues like caste issues, and it also tells us a lot about the Keralite Syrian Christian lifestyle, their community, and also communism. Book number 2 is Swarka by Ambika Sutan Mangat, and this is a translation. So it was originally written in Malayalam and later it was translated from Malayalam into English by J. Devika. Now this book is set in the 1990s, and we see the story of these two souls who are city dwellers, but they are fed up of the chaotic life of the city, and now they want to move to a quiet place and they want to settle in the quiet of the nature and somewhere in the forest. But what happens is that when they actually do so, they realize that the serenity that they have around them is actually not so. It is very deceptive. The people and the land around them is actually slowly and gradually succumbing to slow poisoning. And this is the tale of the early days of the people's struggle against the endosulfan spraying in North Kerala. Book number 3 is The Saga of Black Gold by Anuradha, and this is also a translation originally written in Malayalam and later translated into English by K. Vijay Lakshmi Menon. Now this book is set in the 15th century Kerala, and it tells a gripping tale of love, of war and commerce. So we see that Vasco da Gama has set his eyes on the treasures of the Malabar coast, and there is this one thing that is on his priority list, that is the black gold, pepper. Now very well aware of his intentions, the Zamorin of Calicut, which is basically the monarch of Calicut, he gets panicky and he tries everything possible to delay this, to protect his interests. But he has a pretty niece who has a secret of her own, a secret that is so sinister that if it ever comes out, it has the capacity to crumble the entire kingdom and also start a war on the coast. So this is the premise of the book, and I think it's really interesting. Like, historical fiction is something I absolutely love, and this just speaks to me, like speaks to the reader in me, speaks to the book lover in me. Book number 4 is 100 Little Flames by Preeti Shenoy. So this book is a recent one. I think it was released in 2017 or 18. I'm not very sure. So this book tells us the story of this 26-year-old guy called Ayan, who is sent by his father to live in the village of his grandfather. So this village where he's supposed to go and stay is a very small village, is a very sleepy village. So much so that there is not even perfect internet connectivity over there. And Ayan is obviously devastated, but he has to adhere to the wishes of his father, who is also very adamant in his ways, and he is determined to have his way at any cost. So this book basically is the story of a young man who has his entire life ahead of him and an old man who has all his life in his past, and how a few months of togetherness change everything between them, change the way they look at life, they look at relationships, and changes a lot of their perspectives. 5 is also a book that I think is very interesting. So this is Chimmeen by T.S. Pillai. This is also an originally written in Malayalam book and later it was translated into English by Anita Nair. This book was first published in 1956 and the author had won the Kendriya Sahitya Akademi Award in 1958 and also the Gyanpith Award in 1984. Another interesting thing is that this book became very popular, so much so that it was actually turned into a movie. So this book tells us the story of a relationship between a Hindu woman, Karuthamma, who's a woman from the fishing community of Kerala, and the son of a Muslim fish wholesaler, Parikutti. And because she's unable to live with this guy, Parikutti, Karuthamma decides to marry Palani, who knows about her scandalous past, and despite of all the things that he has heard about her, he has his full trust in her. Now this is something you are imagining from 1950s. So just think about it, let it sink and then react. So Palani, who's her husband, trusts her blindly. And this trust is kind of reaffirmed every time he goes out to the sea and comes back safely. Because in the fishing community of Kerala, there is this lore, this belief that the safe return of a fisherman is actually linked to or depends on his wife's fidelity. But then one night a chance encounter between Karuthamma and Parikutti happens and their love is rekindled. And this is the night when her husband is out baiting a shark. So this is the premise of the book. Like I said, I think it's very interesting and I would love to read it because it has all the elements of a scandal and drama and masala and a little bit of magical realism. Maybe. I'm just hoping that it is there, but let's see. The next book, which is book number 6, is The Moods Last Sai by Salman Rushdie. This is a book that tells us the story of this guy called Moor Zogaibi, who's the last in line in a dynasty of spice merchants and crime lords from Cochin. Now this guy is also in exile and is a compulsive storyteller. And we as readers see him spinning tales after tales, enchanting and captivating family tales that talk about mad passions, family rivalries, stubborn matriarchs, curses that go beyond the grave, and also premature deaths, a lot of them. But does Moore know that the India that he loves to talk about and loves to tell tales of, does it really exist? And does he really know what happened to his tempestuous and fiery mother? And this is the premise of the book. I think it's very fascinating and I would love to read this book myself. Book number 7 is called Palayathara by Paul Chirukkarode. This is also originally written in Malayalam and it was later translated into English by Catherine Thankamma. This book was first published in 1963 and this is the first Dalit novel on record, and it is also one of the founding texts of Dalit Christian movement in Kerala. Now we see the protagonist of this book who is very attached to the concept of land, but one day all of a sudden he is thrown out of his service and also out of his livelihood by his upper class landlord. Now the theme that runs in this book is casteism in Christianity and the kind of psychological effect it has on people who left their ancestral god to embrace a new faith and again face the same things they were running from. Book number 8 is also a translation. This book is called Mustache. It's written by S. Harish. This book is translated from Malayalam to English by Jayashree Kalathil. So in this book, we get to see the story of Vavachan, who is a man, a lower caste man, who gets an opportunity to play a policeman with an immense mustache in a musical drama. Now he actually gets a very small role, but his performance is terrific and his mustache is so fierce that it actually terrifies the upper class men of this village. Now afterwards, Vavachan, who comes from a caste whose people were traditionally banned from growing any facial hair, he refuses to shave his mustache at any cost. Now as time goes by, endless tales of this mustache and Vavachan are told and retold until Vavachan and his mustache assume mythic proportions. Now this book is set in the southwest coast of Kerala in a place which is called Kuttanad, and it is as much the story of Vavachan and the people of that land as it is about the land itself. The next book, which is the book number 9, is called The Blind Lady's Descendants by Anis Salim. Now this is a book which won the Crossword Book Award for Best Fiction in 2014. Now this book tells us the story of this guy called Amar Hansa who lives in this palatial but crumbling house which is called the bungalow. Now Amar is born to parents who are always constantly and silently warring, and his is a life which is marred, which is scarred by tragedies and bad luck. Finally, when he reaches the age of 26, he he decides to start narrating his story to an imaginary audience, and that is when skeletons tumble out of the closets in the bungalow. And this is the premise of the book. It's a compelling and haunting family saga. Book number 10 is also by the same author. It's called The Small Town Sea by Anis Salim. In this book, we see the story of a 13-year-old guy, the protagonist of the novel, who is uprooted from his big city, and he's made to tag along with his father, who actually comes from a very small town. Now his father, who's a writer, a very, very famous writer, is ailing, and it is his last wish to die listening to the sounds of the sea that he has grown up listening to and also written a lot about. So it is in this situation that the protagonist finds himself, but he's very lonely because he hardly knows anybody there. And that's when he becomes friends with this guy called Bilal, who is actually an orphan, and they set out on a lot of misadventures and also adventures while his father is rediscovering a lot of people from his own childhood. So this is the premise of the book. I think it's a book about love, about loss, about separation, and about going back to one's own roots. Finally guys, the last book that I have for you in this list is called The Silent Witness by Anuradha. This book takes us to the 17th century of Malabar, where the law and order is in pathetic condition as Portuguese constantly terrorize the locals. Now Kerala Varma is the heir to the throne of Kochi, and he decides to join forces with his sworn enemy, the Samuthari of Calicut. And they do this to push back the outsiders. The situation is so bad that Kerala Varma and his brother, they go into exile disguised as sannyasis. But he makes this one mistake of falling in love with the gorgeous niece of an army chief of an Portuguese ally. Now into this tantalizing medley of politics, power and war comes the Dutch, who also want a piece of the pie, and that's the reason they decide to join forces with Calicut and also Cochin. So this again sounds like a very interesting novel, and I would love to read it myself. So that's it from me in this video guys. These were the 11 books based in Kerala that I have come across, and I would recommend to you based on the recommendations given to me by fellow bookstagrammars. A huge shout out to all the lovely people that recommended these books to me. So thank you so much Somili, thank you so much Book Reviews by Alicia, thank you Shalu Walia and Vishal Jha, thank you Lil Miss Bibliophile, thank you Desi Bookstagrammar, thank you Mystic Merrymaker, thank you Blossoming Reader, and also thank you Words and Thoughts 9. I will be putting a link to the profiles of all these wonderful people, their Instagram handles in the description box below, and you should definitely check them out. If you are looking for people to follow for book reviews and book recommendations, these are the guys that you have to check out. And that's it from me in this video guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like, and also in the comments below let me know which book are you most excited about. And if you have read any other book on Kerala that you would love to recommend to me, let me know in the comments below. And until the next video, which will be pretty soon, bye.